retro-real presence.
Imagine a dark room, a single candle flickering in the dim light. You stand before a mirror, feeling the weight of an ancient dare passed down through generations. You take a breath and whisper, "Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary." But what happens next? For centuries, tales of the terrifying Bloody Mary have haunted both children and adults alike. In today's episode, we unravel the mysteries, histories, and possible origins of the Bloody Mary legend. The Bloody Mary ritual is simple yet chilling. Standing alone in front of a mirror, participants are often in total darkness or candlelight. The quiet room, flickering light, and haunting chant set the stage for something otherworldly. Some claim to see a ghostly woman's face appear. Others feel chills or hear whispers. But where did this ritual come from? And why do we return to it again and again, daring the unknown? Some say Bloody Mary originates from Queen Mary I of England, known for her ruthless execution of Protestants in the mid-1500s. Her reputation earned her the nickname Bloody Mary. Historians recount how she wanted to secure a Catholic England, and anyone who opposed her paid with their life. Could this legend be a haunting by Queen Mary herself, a figure whose very name instills fear? Another theory connects Bloody Mary to the American legend of Mary Worth, believed to be a witch in the colonial era. Accused of practicing dark magic, she was shunned by her community and ultimately met a violent end. It's said her spirit lingers, cursing anyone who calls upon her name. Some versions say Mary was a young girl, cursed by a terrible accident. After her family declared her dead too soon, she was buried alive. The lore tells us that her ghost seeks vengeance for the premature burial, haunting those who summon her. In many cultures, mirrors hold a mystique that goes far beyond their practical purpose. They are often seen as portals, delicate boundaries between our world and something far stranger. Legends tell us that mirrors can trap spirits, capturing a soul's reflection if it lingers too long. In Victorian England, for instance, mirrors were covered in the homes of the dead. Families feared that the spirit of their loved one might become ensnared in the glass, doomed to watch the world from the other side. The moment of death, they believed, could leave a lasting imprint, a ghostly trace that would forever haunt the mirror. In other cultures, such as in Eastern Europe, staring too long into a mirror could be seen as an invitation to forces beyond human control. Folktales warn of figures or shadows appearing when one dares to gaze too intently, as if something from the other side answers the call. These tales have given rise to terrifying games and rituals, such as summoning Bloody Mary or other spirits by candlelight. The longer one stares, the more their reflection seems to shift and distort, giving way to ghastly visions. It's as though the mirror senses the onlooker's curiosity, responding with illusions or perhaps something even more sinister, a glimpse of another realm.
Over the years, countless stories have emerged from those who dared to summon Bloody Mary. Some recount seeing a distorted, screaming face in the mirror, while others claim they were scratched by unseen hands. Let's take a look at some of the most chilling first-hand accounts.
In an account, a group sits in the dimly lit room, the only light coming from a few flickering candles positioned around them. Shadows dance across the walls as they prepare for a ritual they believe will summon Bloody Mary. Tension hangs thick in the air, and each person's face shows a mix of excitement and fear. On that night, they were determined to make contact. As they gathered around, the darkened room added to the growing tension. One of the friends, Sarah, took the lead, her hands trembling slightly as she recited an incantation they had found in an old book, words passed down in whispers from one generation to the next. Sarah glances nervously at her friends before beginning, her voice barely a whisper at first. She chants, "Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary." The others join in, their voices merging in a slow, rhythmic chant, filling the room with an unsettling harmony. Each repetition of her name feels like a step deeper into an unseen world, as if the very walls of the room are listening. Just as the chanting reaches its peak, something strange begins to happen. The flickering candle throws shadows that twist and morph, shapes that almost seem to move of their own accord. A chill runs through the group as they begin to notice their reflections in the mirror, each one slightly off. Their faces appear distorted, stretched in ways that defy the laws of nature. One of the friends, Ben, gasps and points at the mirror, his voice shaky. Look, in the mirror, behind us. The others turn to see what Ben has seen. In the dim reflection, a shadowy figure appears behind them. It's a vague, undefined form at first, like smoke curling and condensing into a shape. Then, slowly, unmistakably, it takes the outline of a woman with dark hair and hollow eyes, her face contorted in a silent scream. One of the candles blows out suddenly, plunging half of the room into darkness. Panic begins to creep into the group as they realize they may have gone too far. Sarah speaks. Did you see that? This isn't funny anymore. The friends glance at one another, their expressions filled with fear and doubt. For a moment, no one dares to breathe, as though the very act might disturb the fragile barrier between the living and the spirit world. But before they can decide what to do, a cold wind sweeps through the room, extinguishing the remaining candles. In the pitch blackness, they hear a faint, chilling whisper, a voice that is not their own, whispering voice soft, ghostly, "You called for me." The group is frozen in fear, hearing the voice but unable to see its source. Their breaths are shallow, hearts pounding as the voice seems to drift closer. In the darkness, they feel a presence surrounding them, an energy so cold it seems to seep into their very bones. They realize, with a sinking dread, that the ritual may have worked, but now they have no idea how to stop what they have summoned. At the end of the ritual, the group tries to escape the room in a frenzy, but strange occurrences keep them trapped. As they fumble for the door, they find it locked, though no one had touched it. The faint, ghostly whispering grows louder, now mixed with the sound of scratching on the walls. One by one, each friend starts to see horrific, personal visions in the mirror, scenes of fears or memories twisted in dark, unnatural ways. In a final, desperate attempt, Sarah gathers the courage to face the mirror directly, trying to break the connection they had established. She shouts Bloody Mary's name one last time, hoping it will end whatever they summoned. The room falls eerily silent, the temperature suddenly rising as if the presence has lifted. However, as they rush out of the house, each feels an odd chill and a strange, lingering sensation, as if they're being watched. Later, they all experience unsettling dreams and notice shadowy figures in mirrors even in their own homes. They realize they may have carried something back with them, or haunting that has attached itself, waiting in the mirrors to remind them of the night they summoned Bloody Mary. Why does the legend of Bloody Mary persist across generations? Why do we feel such a pull to test our courage in front of a dark mirror, whispering her name? Psychologists believe this ritual taps into some of our most primal fears: fear of the dark, fear of the unknown, and fear of our own reflection. And in that mirror, we confront something much more powerful than any spirit, our own imagination. The ritual is designed to make you vulnerable. Alone in a darkened room, lit only by a flickering candle, your sense of isolation heightens. Suddenly, you're cut off from the world you know. All it takes is the quiet repetition of Bloody Mary's name to blur the lines between what's real and what's imagined. In that moment, your imagination fills the silence, conjuring shapes, sounds, even whispers. This is where psychology and urban legend intersect. There's a phenomenon called pareidolia, the human tendency to see familiar patterns, especially faces, in random objects. When you stare long enough at your reflection, especially by dim light, your mind can start to play tricks. Shadows shift, and the faintest change in light or movement can look like an entirely different face. But why does fear intensify in groups? You are not alone when you call on Bloody Mary. Friends join in, each adding their own energy, their own fears to the atmosphere. This creates a psychological effect known as emotional contagion. When one person starts to feel afraid, the others do too, feeding off each other's anxiety. And that collective fear becomes something powerful, something that feels real even if, logically, we know it isn't. Fear has the power to cloud our senses, distorting what we see and hear. The slightest flicker of a candle becomes a mysterious movement in the mirror. A creaking floorboard becomes an ominous footstep. When we're afraid, our minds can convince us of almost anything. So we must ask ourselves, is Bloody Mary truly real? Or does she exist only in the darkest corners of our mind, in that fragile space where fear and imagination collide? Bloody Mary becomes a terrifying reality, a product of our own creation, fueled by centuries of whispered stories and a relentless curiosity to face what we cannot see. Psychologist Giovanni Caputo from the University of Urbino conducted a groundbreaking study that sheds light on why people might see distorted faces, apparitions, or even feel a paranormal presence while gazing into mirrors. In his experiments, Caputo invited participants to sit in a dimly lit room and stare into a mirror for 10 minutes. The results were startling. 66% of the participants reported seeing drastic distortions of their own faces, while 48% claimed to see monstrous faces, and around 28% even reported seeing the face of a deceased relative. Caputo explained that these eerie visions occur due to dissociative identity effect and sensory deprivation. When a person stares at their reflection for an extended time, especially in dim lighting, the brain's visual processing system begins to fill in gaps where it expects details, leading to distortions. The lack of visual stimulation in a low light setting forces the brain to create impressions and shapes, leading to the perception of ghostly figures or distorted facial features. But why do these hallucinations feel so real, even frightening? Caputo suggests that our brains are wired to interpret visual stimuli based on context. In a dark, quiet room, our brain may perceive the lack of stimuli as a potential threat and thus fill in those gaps with fearful imagery. So, the monster-like faces that some people see may be the brain's way of turning fear into a tangible experience. The strange face illusion also involves something known as Truxler fading, a phenomenon in which fixed visual attention on a single point causes peripheral details to fade or distort. In the case of mirror gazing, this fading can distort parts of one's face, making the nose or eyes appear longer, larger, or smaller, or even making half of the face vanish altogether. This effect has been known to lead to powerful hallucinations, as the mind's efforts to compensate create bizarre facial combinations. Truxler fading, combined with low light, adds a surreal quality to the experience, contributing to the ghostly or monstrous faces that participants often describe. Studies like Caputo's open a new door to understanding the power of our own minds. These visual distortions remind us of how deeply our imagination and fears can influence what we think we're seeing. What's in the mirror might just be a shadow of our own mind, an internal, subconscious fear brought to life. Why does the Bloody Mary ritual leave some participants feeling as though they've been cursed or haunted? The unsettling feeling can last for days, even weeks after the experience. Strange occurrences, feelings of being watched, or seeing shadowy figures are common in these stories. But are these real hauntings? Or does the ritual merely play tricks on the mind, amplifying fear and expectation? The human mind is a powerful tool, and sometimes what we expect becomes our reality. This is known as the placebo effect. When we believe something will happen, our brains can make us experience it as though it's real. When you stand in front of that mirror, chanting her name, the anticipation of something terrifying builds. This heightened anxiety can make your mind hypersensitive to the smallest disturbances. A creaking floor, a flicker of light, or even a passing shadow can suddenly feel like signs of Mary's presence. When fear kicks in, so does the brain's fight or flight response. This powerful, ancient mechanism is meant to protect us from danger, but when it's triggered without a real threat, it can lead to symptoms like heightened awareness, chills, or even hallucinations. Fear intensifies our senses and can make us feel like we're being watched or pursued, especially in dark, enclosed spaces. Standing alone in front of a mirror, our fear response can play cruel tricks on us.
There's also the concept of a self-fulfilling prophecy, where believing that something bad will happen leads you to act in ways that make it more likely. If you walk away from the mirror convinced that Bloody Mary has cursed you, You might start interpreting small misfortunes, a dropped glass, a bad dream, a flickering light as evidence of the curse.
So, are these experiences real hauntings? Or does Bloody Mary exist only in our minds? While science suggests that fear, expectation, and suggestion explain most of these cases, for those who have tried the ritual and felt her presence, the experience is as real as it gets. Perhaps, in the end, the legend of Bloody Mary reveals less about spirits and more about the powerful mysteries hidden within our own minds. The Bloody Mary legend is not an isolated tale, but part of a global tapestry of eerie, ghostly figures who lurk in the shadows, waiting to be summoned, or even worse, appearing when least expected. Across cultures, we find stories of spirits with haunting motives, chilling backstories, and unforgettable appearances, reminding us that no matter where we are in the world, fear of the unknown is universal. One of the most famous counterparts to Bloody Mary is La Llorona, or the Weeping Woman in Mexico. Her tale has frightened people for centuries. According to legend, La Llorona was once a beautiful woman named Maria, who fell in love with a man who would later betray her. In her rage and heartbreak, Maria drowned her two children in a river before realizing what she had done. Overcome with guilt and despair, she took her own life. Another famous spirit haunting the imaginations of many is Hanako-san, a tale that Japanese schoolchildren know all too well. Her legend is simple yet terrifying. Hanako-san is the spirit of a young girl said to haunt school bathrooms, specifically the third stall. According to the tale, if someone knocks on the stall door 3 times and calls her name, she might respond in a chilling voice, "Yes, I'm here," when they open the door. They may be met by her ghostly figure, a small girl in a red skirt with unkempt hair. Across Europe and even the Americas, the legend of the woman in white persists. Known by different names but with similar themes, she is typically depicted as a grieving, ghostly woman who wanders in a flowing white dress, mourning a lost love or the death of her children. These spectral women are often seen near water, forests, or desolate roads. Like Bloody Mary and La Llorona, they represent the consequences of loss, betrayal, and unending grief. In these stories, the woman in white is a tragic figure, forever searching, a reminder that some traumas leave a lasting mark, one that even death can't erase.
Whether it's the vengeful spirits of Japan, the mourning women of Mexico, or the shadowy figures of Europe, each culture holds a mirror up to our deepest fears, our mortality, our mistakes, and the shadows of our past. The legend of Bloody Mary endures not just because of her eerie origins, but because she reminds us that we're never alone in our fear of the supernatural. Each whispered chant in the dark, each knock on a bathroom stall, brings us closer to a truth we may not be ready to face.
Bloody Mary has inspired numerous films and books, including urban legends. Bloody Mary 205, directed by Mary Lambert, and the book Say Her Name by Junu Dawson. The tale of Bloody Mary has fascinated and frightened generations. Whether a mere urban legend or something darker, she has become an unforgettable figure in folklore. But, dear viewers, we must ask, would you dare stand in front of a mirror and summon her? Let us know your thoughts and stories in the comments.